Thank you. Thanks for staying. Don't get too excited. All right. So it's going to be quite a high-level overview. I'm not covering environmental matters only because really the carbon intensity situation is still a bit off for yachts. I mean, that's coming, and I have to say, well done to SYI and Water Revolution for interacting with IMO, putting an information paper to say that, yes, we are aware we have to do something. We need to draw a reference curve which is achievable, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not covering that today. Here we go. So I'm just covering what's coming down the line that's come from IMO, from the SOLAS Convention that we've incorporated. We covered polar navigation just then, it was mentioned. So private yachts have now been caught by the regulation. Anything over 300 gross tons, there's mandatory requirements. They're not very onerous, to be honest. When they go to certainly the Antarctic, they need to get a permit, and part of that process is in the FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in the UK, asks us whether the vessel's suitable, and then our governor in the Cayman Islands have to sign off the permit. Our requirements are higher than the minimum mandatory requirements, actually, so we require even our private yachts to be coded if they're going down there, just because of the reputational risk, and we don't want them causing problems, search and rescue issues, etc., or pollution. So there is very low requirements for the private yachts, but ours are higher. Lifting appliance, this is just the non-life-saving appliances, so not the rescue boats, lifeboats, it's all the other stuff. That's just the regulation on that's being toughened up. So a bit more cost involved for the manufacturers of that. Pilot boarding arrangements, it's coming down a couple of years' time. I'll flick on to the next one just to show you an example. So there's lots of reports coming through now. There's a lot more focus on it. Some of the arrangements are pretty awful. So there's new mandatory requirements. And pilots are being more encouraged to refuse boarding as it may affect their insurance if they do have an accident when they're boarding unsafe arrangements. So here there's all sorts wrong, you can probably see. I think the biggest issue for yachts is the rubbing band that they have. It's pilot boats might get caught underneath it or hung up on top of it. So yeah, there's a lot wrong with that. Probably don't need to explain that. But so we're just encouraging on new build projects now, albeit it's not fully into force now, they adopt it on a voluntary basis, because otherwise the owner is going to have a problem and have to pay for it a couple of years down the line. The bigger the boat, obviously, the easier it is to fully comply. But there will be yachts that don't fully comply, and all we can say is, closest possible compliance, because we've tried to get some guidelines off the UK Pilot Association. We spent ages talking to them, and also the International Maritime Pilot Association, but they're very clear. They're not going to give any guidance on yachts. They expect you to comply. We all know they won't comply, so you just have to comply as best you can. The other thing that we've been working on, this is more in the yacht code arena. We've had a number of cases over recent years of flooding of tender garages, and often the yachts these days have got lots of sort of tender bays and platforms for beach club areas. So we've enhanced the stability requirements. Just so that and more importantly, we've enhanced the requirements for all the closing of the doors, having sort of remote operation, having all the critical equipment is, can be submerged underwater if it's so located. So yeah, enhanced requirements on the redundancy or reliability, all the critical equipment, so you can close up the boat, pump the water out, and then go back to port. So the safe return to port approach, which passenger ships have these days, I guess, is the closest analogy I can apply to that. I thought I'd mention, just so people are a bit clear on where we stand, I've got it down here, we go, where we stand in terms of comparisons between the codes, because it's often confusing perhaps for people. I would say in the last 3 years, so 2004 to 2025, all of the major FAGs, so the Red Ensign Group as a whole, Marshall Islands and Malta, they've all updated their codes, and we'll continue doing that, obviously, on a fairly regular basis as required. So they all cover now the alternative design provisions, so you have more radical designs potentially, and alternative fuels. So as I put there, over 500 gross ton, it's very difficult to find a difference between the codes, to be honest. Under 500 gross ton, The biggest one I'm aware of, there's a few bits and bobs, but the biggest one that we probably need to address between ourselves is that within the Red Ensign group, for short-range yachts you're allowed to have lesser window strengths, lower sill heights, lower vent heights, we have a wave height limitation, which makes absolute sense. Malta and Marshall don't. So that's one area. Either we go, but underlying, sort of in parallel to that, you're building to class, and they will have a design envelope. So we've got a bit of a mismatch here. So either we all need to say we'll have a look at what class design envelope in terms of speed, significant wave height, and we all say we'll just refer to that and put that on the certificate, because I think what we've found with some recent events, it's you need to give the master the information on the capabilities of the vessel. So that's one area we need to align on. Either we all agree that Beaufort 4 is good as a wave height, or we say, well, let's put on there what is the class design envelope so that we don't have windows breaking and the vessel flooding, because the short range distances in some of the codes are up to 150 nautical miles, and that's a long way. That's not, but short race is fine if the weather's good and it's pretty benign conditions. So that's an important area we need to, I would say, tidy up on. I put on the bottom, it was mentioned in the helicopter session yesterday, Malta are quite strict on their HeliOps certification for their sort of pleasure yachts in private use. It's not a bad thing, and I think we're all going to probably moving towards that direction, maybe not so strict on that, but I think we need to regulate that ourselves a little bit better. So yeah, if I was asked, just one thing that I think we need to do in the large yacht sector under 500 gross ton is really to get sprinklers on them. We've put it as an option in our latest revision of the code that you can get rid of the rescue boat crane, the rescue boat, and you're saving, obviously, weight, you're saving costs there and space, actually, often up on the foredeck, and invest that into a sprinkler system, because most of our issues are fire. If it isn't tender garage flooding, it's fire. So that's one area that I would like all three of us to get around and put a simplified sprinkler system on. I mean, if you go back 30 years, when Lloyd's Register had their yacht rules, it was a requirement back then. But for commercial reasons, because the codes didn't have it, they just defer to what the flags do. So yeah, so Lloyd's had recognised it 30 years ago it was a good idea, but we still haven't got round to mandating that. So that's something we should be doing. So that's. Oh yeah, no, there's one other thing I was going to cover. It's not on there. I lost one of my slides. But some people have mentioned about having a. It's probably my fault, but yeah, about having a harmonised code. And I wanted to cover that, actually. So why don't we have an IMO yacht code? There is other yacht codes for special purpose ships, high-speed craft. I think what served this industry very well over the years, it's been very agile. So you can see we've been regularly updating our codes. We've been getting good industry engagement. So we have, in our mailing list and the events that we go, we take our consultation on the road. So we go to Italy, the Netherlands. And we have captains, designers, operators, builders, of course, SYBAS members, non-SYBAS members, so hundreds of people. And I think that's been really beneficial. And having that commercial edge between the registries is also very good, because you're always trying to adapt to new technology. And I think once you get to the IMO and you're looking at codes there, stuff they're working on now in their working groups is for implementation in 2032, so it's 6 years away. Most of the time, we can't wait that long. We want whatever's coming in, whether it's new craft on the vessels, lithium-ion battery issues, or other flooding issues like we've had here. We need to move a lot quicker. So that's one consideration is that it sounds idyllic, and I would have probably said 10 years ago maybe it made more sense because we weren't so aligned. But when you look at where we are now, particularly on the over 500 gross tons, it's very difficult to find a gap between us. But it's important to keep us on our toes, adapting and adopting to new technology. Same as the class societies do. The class society rules are even more different than the code regulations. And they understand it. If there's a new requirement coming in, the first one to set up a rule set for it, they've often got that commercial advantage, and then the other ones follow. So, I would say, it'd be a good discussion to have with the people who are pushing for it. But certainly, I know from Marshall Islands' perspective, and so that certainly the Red Ensign Group perspective, you know, at the moment you have a great, you have direct and easy access to the regulator, and the regulator, I think, is you know, across all three flags, has served the industry very well. So I said, don't go to IMO, it'd be a, I think it'd be a disaster. But anyway, I welcome views on that from others. Any question? Any questions? Where's my question slide? Oh, here we go. What's the short one? No, I don't think so. As I say, I think we've addressed the key issues there on the short-range yachts. Yeah, we need to do with the fire safety. IMO have the philosophy that the vessel is its own best lifeboat, and I think if we deal with the flooding of the garages, which we have, I think for existing vessels you need to go back and maybe have it assessed and then put in, you know, operating conditions and limitations. When you're doing that, don't leave garages unattended, and you know, obviously keep a lookout what's going on around you. So I think you know, garage flooding was a major issue. Fire is the other one. Short-range yachts are great because there is some good relaxations, but you have to get the safety balance right. So I don't see short-range yachts going, and it'd be good to free up and get rid of these rescue boats right up on the bow, which are really very difficult to handle. You know, and maybe also use other devices for manned overboard recovery, jet skis with a safety sledge on the back. There's many other alternative manned overboard recovery systems which are probably more efficient, take up less space. So I think, yeah, short-range yachts have still got will have a place in the market for you know, up to 500 gross tons. But we have to be mindful that short-range means that you should have a wave height restriction on it. Any more? No? Time to go, isn't it, I think? Yeah. Okay, there you go.